Hello and good morning. Welcome to the second of our Celtic Way Sitdowns with myself, Tony Haggerty, and Sean Martin. Now, having gotten a glimpse of what it's like to be in the receiving end of Ange Ball with Perth Glory Stephen McGarry, in our last sit down, today we are coming at you from another angle with a roar, a Brisbane roar to be precise. And our special guest today is none other than Matt Smith, who's one of the most decorated players in A-League history. Now, Matt, who is now the player coach of Brisbane City, won the A-League Championship 3 times and the Grand Final twice. He played under current Celtic boss Ange Postecoglou when he led the row to back-to-back titles in 2011, 2012, and he was also capped by the Socceroos 3 times. He was part of the row side that set the all-time Australian sporting record of going 36 league games undefeated, which still stands to this day. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Matt Smith. Now, Sean, this man shared a dressing room with Ange Postecoglou. He's got a story or six to tell. We certainly hope so.
Certainly hope
Matt,
so.
welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. First and foremost, how are you?
Tony, Sean, thank you so much for having me. I'm always very, very proud to talk about Ange. We're here down under, we can't think and speak highly of him. And it's interesting you mentioned Stephen before, because had many battles with Stephen, and great person, great player, and just don't ever talk to him about a grand final, because it's a very delicate subject, right?
We've already made that mistake.
Oh yeah. We brought it up twice. He was pretty magnanimous, to be fair to him. Now, Matt, you may or may not have been aware that Ange Postecoglou's Celtic team equalled the Rose Hall of 36 league games unbeaten against Hearts yesterday, but we'll get to that later. But what I firstly wanted to know is what it's like to play under Ange Postecoglou. What's he like as a manager? He gives a wee insight into him, his character, legendary team talks, all that kind of stuff.
He makes you feel like you're invincible, is probably the best way to put it. I'm not too sure if a lot of other players have said similar things, but I was fortunate enough to play under him for 2 years, 2 seasons, and I can't recall ever a moment where he said the same team talk twice. There was nothing that was repeated, and we used to walk into a pre-game or a video or that final moments before going out, and we used to say to each other, "Hey, like, surely Ange is going to slip up here. He's going to double up," because as players you pick up the real smaller details.
Yeah.
And but he never said anything twice. He always made you feel that there was always a purpose. There's always a purpose that was bigger than just going onto a pitch and playing. There was always a vision of creating something special, and he was ruthless in a positive way. That you all that you could do was just continue to work harder and harder and harder. So the environment that he created with his coaching staff, the environment and the recruitment that he created with his players, he ensured that everybody was on the same track, the same journey. Of course, over 2 years there were players that potentially might not have always been able to go in that direction, and he was very good at protecting the group. He was very good at protecting his principles and his values and how he wanted his teams to play. There was a non-negotiable on it, and I remember, I was born and raised in Sussex, and I played football in the 80s and 90s, kind of growing up, and at that point it was very long ball football in England, right? It was like long ball transition, and moved to Australia, and long story short, one of my first training sessions under Ange, I played centre back, and I picked the ball up from left back, and I've hit this 80-yard diagonal David Beckham pass, right? And he was like, "Cool, he's going to be happy with that." Right, and he just taps me in the shoulder. He goes, "Matt, we don't do that here." Right, it was as simple as that, because again, he was firm within what he wanted, and little by little, we didn't win a game in pre-season against other A-League opposition. We beat the local teams, of course, but against A-League opposition, we didn't win a game. But we played a match against Everton in Brisbane, and we lost 2-0 on that particular day, and I know it was pre-season for Everton as well, or at the end of season, sorry, but we performed really well, and we're like, wow, if we can do this against Everton, surely we can take that forward. That's when for me anyway, it started that little bit of belief in a match, because you do all the pre-season, you go into the match, and then we didn't win a game, I think, for the first 5 rounds of the season, you know, and the media was calling our head, or all my peers like, what's going on, Matt? But internally, it was always about improving. Internally, it was always about fixing and being better and better and better. And then we won our 5th game at home to Sydney, which is a big kind of state derby. And we then went on this amazing journey. We had this amazing journey of 36 games. And I hope, sincerely, I hope, because I don't know how much you know, but once we got the 36, have a look at our record. Have a look at our record for the next 5 games, because we lost.
I was going to say that, Matt. You famously made history with the 36 unbeaten run with the Roar, but does that still give you goosebumps when you talk about it? Does it still make you kind of warm inside and you smile when you just think of that time and playing under Ange and stuff like that?
Well, the trophies and the celebrations, and I'll be honest, we didn't even realise it was as many games up until probably the game 34 or 35, and then the media was just blew up with it. But internally, he didn't let us focus on that.
Yeah,
he didn't change. Like, it was that we go again, we improve, we get better, because at that point everyone was like, we figured out Brisbane Roar, we know how they play, we can stop them and all that sort of stuff, but nobody could, right? So when people talk about that team, they don't necessarily talk about all the championships, you know, the 3 titles and then the 2 leagues. What they talk about is how we done it. How we done it for us was a lot more important than, not it wasn't important, it's always good to win, but it was just as important as picking up the trophy.
yeah.
Because people talk about that Brisbane era or that Brisbane team changing the face of Australian football, and that was his legacy.
Matt, some viewers, especially those who tune in from down under regularly, will already know what you mean with Australian football, with the championships and the leagues. But just for those that aren't kind of familiar with it, can you just briefly explain the concept of league winners and having a final series and a grand final and different things?
Yeah, look, it's a concept that took me a little time to get used to. I was used to the English system. I was born and raised in the league winners, but over here, the Premiership is your league table. So we won 2 premierships. We won the first year with the Premiership, but we couldn't quite win the Premiership the second year. The grand final then was the top 6 teams in the league go into basically a secondary tournament when the season's finished. And again, it took me a little time to kind of get used to it, but it's actually quite a good little end of season tournament. Is probably the best way to put it. But it's classified as the biggest the biggest honour that you could have in Australian football. So the top 16 teams have a single playoff games that go straight to the final. So we obviously won the first year dramatically on penalties. We then were the first team in history to go back to back on the grand finals, and then we missed a year, and then we won it again in the 4th year. So we had 3 grand final championships and 2 premierships. And
of course, during that 36 game run alone, you won both, didn't you?
We did, yeah.
I understand, Matt, that you weren't captain until the latter part of that 36 game run. Is that right? It was Matt McKay for the first part?
Yeah. What a playmate he was. He was a great captain. He's one of the Brisbane football. He's in football history, you know. So I know that he went to your fierce rivals and had some time there. But I'm very grateful to Ange, because I was at Portsmouth as a kid, got released at 17, had kind of the next 10 years playing around semi-pro, kind of moved to Australia, and I was 27 when I got my first pro contract. Now, Ian Ferguson, who's an ex-Rangers player as well, was the coach, and he gambled on me basically. And then that was when Fowler come to North Queensland Fury, and at the end of that season, they went bust, and I got a phone call from Ange giving me a lifeline, basically. So the first season that I was at the club, you know, the club went from finishing last the previous year to then winning both the Premiership and the Championship in one season. Now, I come from nothing, so I owe Ange and Brisbane Roar a lot in my life, really, myself and my family's life. So Matty McKay was the captain for the first year that I was at the club, and then another little story, but when Matt left to go to Rangers, there was a captaincy void, right? So I wasn't in the leadership group at that point, and I got a phone call from a journalist the day before saying, "Matty, we hear that you're the new club captain." I almost spat my coffee out. What are you talking about? Like, I'm not even in the leadership group, and I just said, "Yeah, good one," and just hung up. And then went to training the next day, and just a normal routine, because we train really early because we play in the sun. It's hot, so we train early. And Ange pulled me aside. I'm like, oh, what have I done? Like, Ange doesn't really pull players aside in there. So I'm like, what have I done? Like, so I was like sweating in like the heat and stuff. And he just simply said, like, Smithy, you're the new captain of Brisbane Roar. And I was like, okay, I want you down. On you go. And that was it. So it was a very quick conversation, and it was back to business. You know, like I was very fortunate. There were some great people around, of course, but yeah, the transition from Matty to Ange, and what Ange and my thoughts with Ange are huge. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. See that term, leadership group, is something I've read quite a few times with Ange Postecoglou. So really, what I wanted to know was what changed for you when you were made up not only a part of the leadership group, but essentially the main part of it. What did it entail from you as an Ange captain?
I'll be honest and say that it didn't really change how I played. It didn't really change how I trained, and I think that might have been why Ange did us in the first place. Like I've always, again, it is a very British thing as well. Like I was raised playing football with older peers that were so vocal in games and so driven and so hungry, and that installed like beliefs within me that kind of transferred across to Ange's approach. No, I mean, I'm almost 40 now, and I'm probably going to retire at the end of this year, but I still want to be the best at training. I still want to outrun the young kids. Like it's a mentality that, regardless of the captain I got, I mean, I was very honoured and very privileged, and I was very fortunate, you know. But from a performance point of view, from a change room point of view, from a preparation, I was still what it gave me was more confidence, because I'd just come into pro football. That I now have the ability to be able to look after the wider scope of players to make sure that the whole team and the whole group, whereas I was not singular before in terms of operating around the group, but being the club captain, you have to ensure that you're the one you're responsible for the change room and the standards and the values, and you're driving each other and pushing each other, and small differences, but not too much at all in my own personality.
It's interesting you mentioned about the kind of drive-in training, because he seems big on that when he talks in his press conferences over here about setting the tone in training. And also his current captain, Callum McGregor, is with no exceptions, everybody who's played with him in that squad at Celtic picks him as the best trainer every time. So I'm kind of, it's almost a parallel there, I would say. In that 36th history-making game, the one that we were talking to Stephen McGarry about, and you did demolish Perth Glory 4-0. I recently rewatched the game, and something else stuck out to me before it, and I just wanted to ask you about it. It's you did the huddle before the game, and I was just wondering if you remember what you said in it.
Keep going. Don't, like, again, the messaging was always very, very clear. We didn't know, we didn't listen to externals. Ange and the coaching, I think I might have touched on it before, they're very good at blocking out noise. They're very good at blocking out positivity and also negativity, because there was both throughout our journey. So the players were able to do, I don't know how to say it, flick the switch is probably the best way to put it. You arrive at the ground, you flick the switch, you're mentally on. Like nothing detracts you, nothing disturbs your own mental ability just to perform. And we actually found the games, believe it or not, easier than training. So like the message within that huddle was, do your job, do your role, you know your responsibilities, don't let yourselves down, let's go. Like, so that was always the message all the time. You better work hard.
Matt, can I ask you, were you surprised when Ange Postecoglou got the Celtic call, and were you delighted for him naturally? Because we spoke off air and you said that's probably the one when people sat up and took notice.
Yeah, look, what a journey he's had. You know, not only pre or surrounding Brisbane Roar, but his coaching journey is a phenomenal story. His life story is a phenomenal story. Yeah, and I'm sure that you're fully aware. But with Ange, he's very ambitious. He's very driven. He himself wants to always be the best that he can be, and he wants the challenge and the push and the drive. Like for him to, when he got the opportunity to go to Celtic from Japan, we spoke a little bit off there, and there was, you know, from the British public, it was the element of unknown. It was, we don't know too much, and I think that scares people at times. And I had some interviews back then, and it was give him a chance at the beginning and see how he finishes. All right. So when we saw him at the home ground in the stadium and the fans and his family on the pitch as well, was for us, especially being as close to him, well, more than many in his journey, and being a small part of that was very pleasing to see.
Now, it's the Champions League group stage draw this week, Matt. You're probably aware of that. And you know Ange better than most. It's not something to be feared, is it? He'll relish the challenge if he gets a Real Madrid and going up against Carlo Ancelotti or Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. He's buzzing for that, isn't he? He wants that.
I was going to say he wants the big clubs. He wants the challenge. He wants to challenge himself from a coach to coach point of view, from a tactical sense, from a preparation. Like that's Ange all over. Like he will want to go to the biggest clubs in Europe. He will want to have a good swing at the biggest club, and he won't be in the slightest scared or petrified of it. I didn't watch the game, but his Yokohama played Man City, Pep's Man City over there, and it was one of the few occasions. Please don't quote me, but one of the small occasions where Pep was out possession, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself gives you an idea. It doesn't matter who you play against. Ange will not change his approach or his beliefs or his philosophy against anybody. So Celtic fans, I think that you're going to be very excited by that.
Sean, are you hoping to get a Real Madrid or a Liverpool now?
No comment. Matt, I've got one other question about the time at Brisbane, and it's something we kind of discussed with Stephen the other day, because he was on a coaching course with Ange, and it was in terms of the almost total respect even like ex-players tend to still have. Like, and you can hear it in your voice how much you still respect him. What was it like when he left? Because obviously he left midway through a season, wasn't it? And nobody seems to hold it against him in any way. Everybody still seems to talk about him with such respect. So I just wondering what it was like when he did leave.
Everybody was gutted, sincerely. We had it was at the end of the season. It was at the end of the second season.
Oh, right, okay.
We just beaten Perth in the grand final. Sorry, Stephen. And very controversially, but I still think it was a pen. But there we go. We had a game in. We were playing in the Asian Champions League. We were playing against Ulsan in South Korea, and there was lots of media talk that kind of come up, and probably Ange dragged the captain, myself, and the other leadership group, and just said, "It's just ignore it, forget about it, just crack on. We kind of go again." And we played that, and then it was just before the grand final against Perth, and then the next morning we had the parade through the Queen Street in the city with the grand final trophy. We had a player meeting afterwards, and that's when he told the group that he was leaving, and everyone was they weren't expecting it, but there was a little bit of noise in the media. You know, there was a little bit of it, and so we kind of knew that something was up, and. I was personally then asked to go and to give a speech about Ange to the players and to the group. You know, then I remember getting up there, and I completely, probably one of the few times in my life I completely choked. Like, I was just too emotional to be able to speak, because what Ange gave me and my family is the kind of set. Like, I come from non-league football, and all of a sudden I'm double championship winning captain is because of Ange and what he done for me in how I play and how I perform, and that meant so much that I just couldn't talk. So I'm like, sorry, I just can't, right? And then Ange took me outside and just gave us a big hug, and he was like, just keep going, you know. So it was a sad day for the club, because his legacy will forever be in Brisbane Roar, and people are very proud of him.
I think Steve McGarry summed it up perfectly when he said, I kind of asked him about Ange the manager, and he said a simple thing, but it kind of hit home, Matt. And he said, Ange changes football players' worlds. And from talking to yourself there, he changed your world, and you're not going to be the first or last footballer whose world he will change.
It's great to also hear that Stuart McLaren, he's a former coach of mine as well. When I played, correct me if you're under 18s coach as well. So it's great to see that and obviously you've got Harry now in the coaching department as well. So Ange is a firm believer of a whole of club approach. So I don't know the in-depths, but I'm sure that the up and coming youth players will be, their philosophy and how they develop players will be in line with where he wants the club to go as well.
Well, we shall call time on it there, Sean.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your contribution, Sean. As always, first class. Always check out the website. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe and take advantage of our latest subscription deal. But of course, thanks most of all to you, Matt, for joining as a guest on this episode. It's much appreciated. And
very much appreciated. Yeah.
Thanks for your time, fella. That was excellent. A brilliant insight. Absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed that.
Tony, Sean, thank you so much. And good luck with the draw. I'm hoping that Real Madrid are out there.
I'm sure Ange is as well, privately. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for taking part.
Thanks, Matt. Cheers. Appreciate it.
Really excellent.
Good luck.
Take care.